How are you? Okay, so I'm gonna go through kind of a lot of information right now. What I'm gonna do is talk about Disney, Walt Disney, the the space race, the 1950s, NASA, Werner von Braun, Antarctic Treaty, quite a few things. So I'm gonna roll through and go through page by page. So I'm going to move kind of quick, and there's going to be a lot of information. So if you see anything, stop, rewind it. But I'm going to be kind of going boom, 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 and everything's going to kind of cascade into and kind of dovetail into one story. But just kind of showing how all these things are related. So Walt Disney, we all know it's a family-esque, company, and it's all about entertaining the kids and the wonder and magic. And when you think about the spells and the magic and all this, there really is another side to it that we really don't consider. How every movie that the parents die, and it's always orphans, and it's always these tragedies, and it's never a complete family unit. And there's magical spells and wizardry, and there's another side to it. So let's kind of roll through. Where am I at here? So Walt Disney was a Freemason. De Molay is a children's fraternity of the Freemasons, Order of de Molay. De Molay was Jacques de Molay. He was a Knights Templar. He was the leader of the Knights Templar that was burned at the stake when they tried to disband the Knights Templar. Story goes, Order de Molay, Walt Disney. This is his Kansas City. This is his card, I guess. He is the most famous de Molay of all, Walt Disney. This is the De Molay website. This is him and his fraternity. That's him right here. So he was a Freemason, a sect of the Freemasons, division, whatever you want to call it. This is Club 33 in Disneyland. 33, paying homage to the 33rd degree Freemasons. Checkered floor is representative of Freemasonry. Okay. So let's just start with that premise. Can I get out of here with these things? Okay, so let's start here, because this is kind of funny. So let's talk about the planets. Let's talk about, which is it seems off topic, but it's not. The planet Pluto was discovered in February 18th, 1930. Okay. Say it's the 9th planet. Story goes it was discovered, and then it was demoted because it was too small and all this nonsense. Okay. Pluto's average distance from the sun is nearly 4 billion miles. It takes 248 years to complete one orbit around the sun. It's a long time, right? If you believe in that sort of thing. It also has the most elliptical, meaning it's not a circle, it's like a big oval, okay? Tilted orbit of any planet, and at its closest point to the sun, it passes inside the orbit of Neptune, the 8th planet, okay? So it's doing a big oval, and it's crossing inside Neptune's orbit. And if you can imagine orbital dynamics and gravitational forces and all of these magical things that that we're told to believe, wouldn't this tiny planet be gravitationally pulled towards Neptune, especially when it's going through the the same path? It's not going to be affected by Neptune at all when it gets so close to it. And just coming by, it would have a shift, and then it would get pulled out of its orbit, and it would be gone. So it's nonsense, complete nonsense. So anyways, the premise of this really is that it was discovered February of 1930. Okay. Back to Disney. Disney the dog was first appearance was July 1930. Okay, same year, a couple months apart. So we allegedly, or comes out. We discovered a new planet. They called it Pluto. If you look at it, they say they named it Pluto after the Greek god. And then, within months, Disney comes out, and 1930 also, makes this new dog named Pluto. And if you look at the biography or whatever you want of Pluto and how he was named, they also say that he was named after a Greek god. And the people that were in the know in both of these situations both clearly say in documents that they've written and been interviewed that the dog, Disney did not name it after the planet, and vice versa. They were completely unrelated. Just a coincidence, okay? Just a coincidence, yeah. All right. Now, let's go to NASA. NASA's site. Here's Pluto. Let's look at these pictures of Pluto. It's just an amazing planet. Look at that. Look at that. This is taken from, I think, is the New Horizons, 2015. This is a real picture. Not. Okay. What a joke. Do you see anything here that is looking a little strange? Rough. Okay. Again, this is NASA. This is NASA's site. They're doing Pluto galleries. These are their pictures. Okay. Unbelievable. All right. So now there you go. So here's Pluto the dog on Pluto the planet. What do you know? So again, they were both discovered in 1930, and here we are, 2015. They come up with a CGI image that they made, because it's not a real photo, of this, alleged planet, this alleged rock in the outer space flying around, unimpeded by any gravitational forces of Neptune. It's still slowly, over 248 years, billions of miles away from the sun, just does a perfect rotation. Well, an elliptical rotation. So it does a big, perfect oval. So it speeds up and slows down in its orbit as the sun's traveling at 500,000 miles an hour, and this little rock is keeping up, and coincidentally, it looks exactly like Pluto the dog. So there you go. Okay. All right. So shenanigans. In your face, in our face, mocking us like everybody's just too dumb to figure this stuff out, right? All right. So let's go back to Disney itself. This is, I think it's in Disneyland. I think it's when you go in there's that big room that does all the sketching, and you can sit and watch them kind of draw on the walls. It's, truth be told, I actually like Disneyland. I mean, it's cool to go there. I live close. I'm about an hour away from there, and I do enjoy it. And it's one of those guilty things that these guys are a bunch of, when it comes down to it, it's a bunch of wizards and very strange things they're doing, and really kind of helping to destroy the fabric of our culture. But I don't know. You go in Disneyland at nighttime and those lights are on, and I love the Pirates of the Caribbean. It takes you to another world. So I don't know. I guess it's a guilty pleasure or whatever. So look, the art of Disney. This is, you see what this is? 666. Disney in the name. 666. Some people say, oh, it's just, you're just looking too hard. Well, you're not. It's completely separated from the name. 666, the art of Disney. Okay. The Art of Disney. So there's that, just a little snippet. Okay, here is early 50s. Here's Walt Disney. Here is the Nazi Wernher von Braun, brought over after World War II. He's a Nazi scientist and the head of NASA. Okay, these guys were bros. Okay, here is 1955. What else happened in 1955? Disneyland opened. First opened ever in 1955. And they came out of Tomorrowland, which was a sales pitch for space. At that time, before this, little boys loved playing cowboys and Indians. And you know, that's what they did. And then entered Disney and started implementing these ideas of space travel and all this, and all of a sudden kids wanted to you know, put on a bubble over their head and be spaceman, and shifted the culture and the mentality of children and adults forever. Okay, this is Man on the Moon. This is 1955. It's a movie that they put out. It came out on networks. I think it was a CBS. And let's watch this for a little bit, just for a sec. This is Walt, you know, intro.
Studio technicians have prepared a factual picture of how the coming conquest of the moon will be accomplished. Here to tell you about it is director Ward Kimball.
When we hear the exciting news of how the rocket scientists of today are preparing for tomorrow's trip to the moon, we must remember that such a trip has long been the dream of many men since history began. But before we consider the scientific plans for a trip to the moon, let us first show you, as sort of a prologue, the results of our research into the legends and facts and foibles, superstitions of man and the moon.
Okay.
Roll the moon sequence, please.
Goes on to talk about all of history.
Men are given a hearty reception by the brothers of the Baltimore Gun Club.
Today, with the help of modern telescopes and cameras, we are able to get a close-up view of the very unusual details on the moon's surface. The prominent dark areas we see even without it. The moon's rather rough, a dead world without atmosphere, a silent, unchanging, the United States Army's Redstone Arsenal.
It's important to know that when this guy rolled in, nobody knew he was a Nazi. This was all a secretive thing. This is 1955. You know, obviously, World War II came to an end in 1945, 10 years prior. These guys were snuck in. There's thousands of these, you know, Nazi scientists, and you know, I'm not making any judgments on these guys. I'm just saying what it was. But you know, Wernher von Braun, when he died, on his headstone, he put the Bible verse, Psalms 19:1, which says, John Blanket, it's God showed his handiwork through the firmament, and talks about the firmament. And you know, in the Bible, the second day was the creation of earth, was devoted to creating the firmament, and the firmament held the greater light and the lesser light, and the luminaries that were made for signs and seasons, basically a clock in the sky. The greater light was to run to control the day, and the lesser light for the night, and that's what it is. It's a giant clock. It's a giant clock that slowly spins over our head, and it's the most perfect clock that's ever been invented. And it, every year resets, comes around. The sun does the same rotation, and they go in a circuit, and that's what he was alluding to. So, you know, you like to think that, you know, he had the idea when he died to pay respect to God and the firmament that God created, which would also not let anyone fly through it. And that's modern day science. Even the modern day scientists say we cannot leave Earth orbit. And if you look at university studies, scientific studies all over the place, they say that there is an impenetrable barrier that we can't get through. The firmament. You know, it's a whole other story, but let's move on here. Here's von Braun.
Dr. Werner von Braun.
A voyage around the moon must be made in 2 phases. A rocket ship taking off from the Earth's surface will use almost all the fuel it can carry just to attain a speed great enough to balance the pull of gravity. Unpowered, it will then keep circling the Earth in an orbit outside of the atmosphere. This is the first phase. However, if we can refuel the ship in this orbit with fuel brought up by cargo rocket ships, it can set out on the second phase, the trip around the moon and back. To facilitate this refueling operation, we will establish an advanced base in the orbit.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Basically, this whole thing is a propaganda movie to make people believe you can fly in outer space and you can go in orbit and you can, you know, make an elliptical orbit around the Earth, and you can go just fast enough that you're falling and not actually crashing because you're going faster than you're falling, and you know that's what an orbit is. So it's utter nonsense. But this is 1955. They're starting to you know, brainwash people and make them believe that these things are possible through Disney. And this is also 1955, Man in Space. This here is Jack Parsons. Let's see here. Check this out.
Ships and to provide suitable working conditions that will enable them to survive in space. To help show you what is being done to solve these problems, we have called upon one of the foremost exponents of space travel, Dr. Werner von Braun.
All right, again, this is Jack Parsons. He is the head or the founder of JPL, Jet Propulsion's laboratory, Jack Parsons Laboratory, but Jack Parsons started JPL, and he's a rocketeer, he's an occultist, and he's a trippy dude. So I'm not going to show you any more of this because I wanted to keep rolling here, but I want to show you this Jack Parsons, and you know there's TV shows about this guy now. It's like cool because he was a sex occultist and all this. Well, he became the head of the local chapter in Anaheim of the OTO, which is a secret society, and really headed up by Aleister Crowley. It's like an Eastern like the Orient philosophies of these basically Freemasonry and these ideas, and the OTO is a secret society that was headed up by Aleister Crowley. And let's see, here's your boy. They call him the Beast. This guy was a trip. He was, you know, his book and his writings. He's caused a lot of problems. His motto was "Do what thou wilt." It's basically like no rules, no accountability, no morals. Go for it, and there is no accountability. And they were some trippy dudes. Jack Parsons was buddies with L. Ron Hubbard. They were like best friends. L. Ron Hubbard used to have sex with Jack Parsons. L. Ron Hubbard would have sex with Jack Parsons' wife in these sexual magic, black magic, cultic ceremonies, and they called it Babylon working. They were trying to incarnate a child, which was Satan himself. You can look that up. That's what they were doing. And then L. Ron Hubbard later took off with Jack Parsons' wife and all of his cash, left him high and dry, and went on to write the book Dianetics and start the Church of Scientology, another sham, and was kind of instrumental because he's a science fiction writer as well, which kind of plays into this whole, propaganda machine of creating the idea that you can possibly go into outer space and spaceships going out in outer space and orbits and all this, and there's that. Okay, now you got Gunther Wendt. The reason I brought this up was these Nazi scientists and Jack Parsons were really the head of this whole space program. And you can imagine if this whole thing went south, they can hang it on these guys, right? There's nobody credible. You got this wild, sex occult, Rocketeer, OTO guy, and you have a bunch of Operation Paperclip Nazi scientists. So they were found out, anybody in charge can say, hey, these are bad dudes. So there you go. Anyways, there was a ton of these guys that were critical in all of this whole thing, but Gunther Wendt actually closed the door when Apollo 11, which is what allegedly took Neil Armstrong and Buzz and Michael Collins to the moon. This guy was the one that actually closed the door to the rocket. This is him right here. This is a picture of Apollo 11. These guys are boarding and can you imagine? Consider that. Really think about that. If this was real, we would have the first Americans, the first men to leave Earth and fly to the moon and land on the moon. And wouldn't you want an American just ceremonially, or just the ceremony of it, or just to close the door and close the hatch and send these guys off? Everything that we do, we pay respect in those types of situations. And instead, you have this dude, this Nazi, ex-Nazi. He's the guy that closes the door. Isn't that weird? So, just another little point. So, if you ever wonder how these guys might have faked this thing, I mean, first of all, the Apollo 11, the Saturn V, when it takes off, it had like 220 decibels of sound. And, Walter Cronkite was 3 miles away in the room he was in. The ceiling tiles were falling off because of the vibrations and the sheer vibrations of 220 decibels would kill a human being. So there's that it's not even possible just because of that one thing alone, that the people in this rocket would die because of the sound and the vibrations would kill them. But anyways, I thought this was kind of a funny thing because this kind of gives these guys a way out. Even if there was anywhere around the pad, they say, they can.
Last thing anybody wants now is an emergency. But like everything else, they're ready for that too.
Once the crew are on board, if it looks as if they're in danger, they get out and head down this tube, specially insulated against fire, and zigzagging down not to some point out and away from the rocket, but to an escape room exactly where you'd think it shouldn't be.
Three and a half minutes after they get the warning in the capsule, the crew could be down here in the blast escape room via that 200-foot escape tube, 40 feet below the base of the rocket. They find themselves in a totally rubber room, walls and floors, and they head for safety through a 6-inch steel door. Once they're behind that door, it doesn't matter what comes down this tube behind them.
On this side of that door, the rarely seen blast escape room itself. It's totally isolated from everything around it by a series of 24 giant springs underneath the floor and shells all round it of steel, concrete, and sand. It contains enough food, water, and air for 20 people for up to 24 hours. And
all right, so that's about that. So just showing you that if anybody was anywhere near there, and these guys actually went up and get in the rocket and then just go down the slide and go down the basement, and then they shoot the rocket up in the air, and it goes over and it falls in the ocean. That's what happens. All right. There's a movie I'd recommend called Capricorn 1. It's Brolin. What is his name? It's actually dealing with Josh Brolin's dad. But Brolin, he stars in it, but it's called Capricorn 1. They do exactly this in the movie, and the movie's about the astronauts going into a space flight, and they trick them and they say they got to go down this tube, and they go in here in the movie, and they basically get suckered into faking it, and then they kind of fight for their lives, and the bad guys come, the guys with the black hats come and hunt them down and kill them. So that's what the movie's about. It came out early 70s, just after Apollo 11, which was interesting, truth in the movies, lies in the news. So Capricorn 1, check that out. It's actually a pretty good movie, honestly. All right, what else we got here? So NASA, we remember, of course, all this space propaganda was starting in 1955. Disneyland started in 1955, and 3 years later, 1958, they started up NASA. Okay. What else? October 1st, 1958, NASA opens. Okay. Going back to Disney, Man in Space was watched by 42 million people. American and Soviet governments aired this, but it's really all over the world. Disneyland was, it was it, man. People loved Disneyland in those days. And back in these days, Disney, even before then, was hired by the United States government to do a ton of propaganda films. What do you know? Back in the 40s, actually, the Disney studios almost went bankrupt, and they stayed in business because they were doing propaganda films. And they weren't only just working for the government, like the military. They were working for the Treasury Department. They were working for all of these different governmental bodies, and they made a ton of movies. And do you think it ended in World War II? Really? Do you ever think, like, how did Disney become that powerful? Who's paying that? I mean, a lot of people go to Disneyland, but that's a whole other thing of what Disney has accomplished, and the strings they pulled, and that they've got the green light on everything. But this is what they did. They made a ton of propaganda films, and they continue to do the same thing with their propaganda in their TV and their cartoons. So you got all these propaganda films. This is what they were doing, and they continue to do in a different way. I mean, there's so many: infant care and feeding, insects and carriers of disease, firing line, and basically how to shoot a gun. You watch these movies; they're hilarious, but it's all propaganda that they worked for the government and they were paying the bills. Okay. All right. So this is interesting. So Nikita Khrushchev, what became the president, the leader of Russia in let's see, what was that? well, he was in 1959. The Russian president had never come to the United States. This is right in the middle of the Cold War, in the deep of the Cold War, and Khrushchev comes to the United States. And if you're not aware, the Cold War was nonsense. It was basically, nobody died. It was people were told that there was going to be a nuclear attack. Nuclear missiles and bombs are not real. That's proven by the Red Cross building. The Red Cross Hospital in Hiroshima survived within half a mile of the impact zone in Hiroshima. It's perfect. There were people in the building, and they all survived because it was carpet bombed. Look up the Hiroshima Red Cross Hospital and look at the footage. Look at the people. These military guys were on the ground the next day taking photographs, and they weren't too concerned about nuclear, meltdown, nuclear waste, and all this, and radioactivity and all that. Because that's not how it works. Go on my page and look up the Nuclear Scare Scam by Galen Windsor. This guy was in the nuclear business. They created plutonium out of uranium with their hands on a daily basis. He literally drank the stuff, swam in the pools. It's not what you think it is. So, anyways, back to this. Khrushchev comes to the United States on a tour, and this is what happened. He was going around giving all these speeches, but check this out. This is just tying it all together because these guys are all in the know. They're all. If you think about how bad this is, think about World War II. Winston Churchill, Truman, Eisenhower, and Stalin were all Freemasons. Let that sink in. Check this out.
Mayor Paulson, the mayor of Los Angeles, said that I will not recommend you to go to the Disneyland because it will be unsafe. And my father was very angry.
When I came here to the city, I was given a plan, a program of what I was to be shown and whom I was to meet here. But just now, I was told that I couldn't go to Disneyland. I asked why not, and just listen to what I was told, to what reason I was told. We, which means the American authority, cannot guarantee your security if you go there. What is it? Do you have rocket launching pads there? I don't know. What is it? Is there an epidemic of cholera there or something? Or have gangsters taken hold of the place that can destroy me? And I say I would very much like to go and see Disneyland. For me, such a situation is inconceivable. I cannot find words to explain this to my people. I thought I could come here and not have to sit in the sweltering heat in a closed car under your hot sun. I thought I could come here as a free man, as a guest of the free American people. This fact can evoke nothing but profound disappointment on my part.
Personally, I knew nothing about Disneyland. I knew the Disney movies, Bambi and all others, and we liked them. But it was not about Disneyland itself. It was about managing my father not in the proper way, and he was very sensitive for this.
Marilyn.
From an entertainer's point of view, what did you think of the show today?
It was a very interesting afternoon.
What did you find most interesting?
Nearly everything.
What did you think of the ad-libs?
Interesting. Very interesting.
From one Hollywood spectacular to another.
Marilyn Monroe. All right, so isn't that amazing? And that's not the only speech. This guy's going around giving speeches the whole time. Every time he's saying he's irritated because he can't go to Disneyland. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. I mean, what a propaganda stunt. The public of the United States, tensions were high. This guy is traveling around the country, going to farms and different points of interest. And the American public hears this guy whining about not going to Disneyland over and over. And what do you think people are going to want to do once they hear that? I want to go to Disneyland. Okay, so Khrushchev, again, 13-day visit. September 15th through 27th, 1959. Okay. It marked the first state visit of a Soviet leader to the U.S. Okay. This didn't happen. This wasn't a normal thing. So it's amazing. It's the first time a Soviet leader comes to the United States, and he comes over whining about Disneyland. Okay? And of course, USSR was also the other antagonist, or probably a bad word, the other party, with the space race. The whole fake space race with Sputnik, and then you go with all these satellites, and then we're going to go up and we're going to fly around and do 3 orbits, and then the other guys are going to do 5 orbits, and then we're going to, it's just a complete joke. Same thing as the nuclear scare of keeping people thinking that they're going to die on a daily basis. Just like something else happened in 2020, making everybody feel like they're going to die. Worldwide coordinated scam. It's been going on a long time, and this is critical. This is one of the biggest psychological operations that has worked, and it's time that we start calling bullshit on this and stop letting our kids learn this stuff. If your kid comes home from school and says, hey, they found water on Mars, say, no, they did not. It's like, come on, man. It's time to move on from these things. It's time to move on from the lies. We got to stop participating in the lies. Got to get back to the truth and just get these guys out of here. We can do this together. So this is why I'm doing this whole thing. I know I'm beating the same drum. I was talking about this on the last video I did, but this is what it's all about, man. I'm very, very passionate about this. I'm very serious about this because the information, this is a psychological war. This information is what it's going to take to get us out of this. Once enough people realize how bad it is, and this type of stuff was going on in 1955, and that's really what's happening. And this is like kind of the tip of the iceberg of what's all of the things. Is mind-blowing. It's fun to look at, it's fun to analyze, and it's fun to learn all these things and piece it all together. I mean, I love it. But there's a dark side to it that we gotta get past this stuff, man. Come on, we got this. All right, so again, let's look at this. September 1959. Okay, Khrushchev comes over. USSR. Okay, right in the middle of Cold War. What else happened? What, 4 months later? December 1959. The Antarctic Treaty was signed. Isn't that odd? Okay. The Antarctic Treaty was signed by 12 countries in the beginning. The largest of them being the United States and Russia and England. So go figure. Go figure. And I've said this before, but if you didn't know, Antarctica is not the bottom of the planet. It is the perimeter that holds in the oceans. And we're not too sure what's past it. There's a lot of speculation. But, 1959, they come out. 1955, they start the space propaganda through Disney, and they start the space race and the brainwashing of space and all of the possibilities of all of that nonsense. And at the same time, you know, they come out and they start NASA, and then a year later, they sign the Antarctic Treaty because they discovered some things that they didn't want people to go down there, or go out there, I should say, go out there and discover. And it's been guarded ever since. So, and you know, I know anybody watching this, there's a lot of other things in the timeline. I really want to make a timeline video of everything going on in this era. One of the things was Operation Dominic and Operation Fishbowl, where they were doing high altitude bombs blowing up, trying to test the firmament. And at the same time, they were digging holes, the United States and Russia. Okay, they both were digging holes. Operation Mole Hole or something. They dug a hole. The United States and the Russians dug a hole, and they accomplished getting 8 miles down, and that's it. So anybody tells you that they know it's in the center of the Earth and different layers of the crust and the magma and all that is an idiot, because nobody's been there and nobody knows. So, but isn't that weird that in the same time frame, they're digging holes, seeing how deep it goes, they're blowing up, seeing how high it goes, and they're making this treaty saying that you can't go around the perimeter, you can't go and test and discover, you know, to explore, see what's out there, and basically creating the idea, the illusion of a ball, so that we have nowhere to go. You know, it's a prison of our minds. It's a prison planet, basically, where there's nothing else to discover. You know, it's like 1997, the Truman Show. You know, there's nothing more to discover. It's all been discovered, you know. So anyways, I'm going to stop rambling. It's been a lot. I appreciate you watching this whole thing, if you stuck it out. But it was kind of a lot. I just wanted to roll through all this because it all kind of dovetails together. And it's all the same thing. You know, sometimes it doesn't seem like it's the same thing, but it's all the same thing. These guys are all creating the illusion. So take care. I'm going to cut it off here, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.